Craig of the Creek is a show where most of its characters, even their leads, have some very real and irritating character flaws, and few characters can be more irritating to Craig and the Stump Kids than Jason of the Four Scouts. After his sleepover at Craig's in the most recent episode, I feel like there is a lot to break down about his character, and what we can tie in from the psychology of his playstyle with what little we know about his home life, and perhaps see that he has bad parents. Jason was first introduced to us as the face of the Four Scout Rangers, the leader of their little group, just as every group seems to have, such as Eustace with the Ninja Kids. The Four Scouts are of course a generic Boy Scout organization, with Jason and the boys spending most of their time either completing tasks in their Four Scout training, practicing for those tasks, or trying to use their Four Scout training and rulebooks to impose on other kids. Jason and his Four Scouts see themselves as heroes, but to most kids they are pretty unhelpful. They tend to be knowledgeable and have resources for emergencies or other situations, but only as much as any other kid in the creek tends to have with their own resources or skills. Because of that, they fit perfectly in the hierarchy of the creek as one of the many groups playing there, but with more friction between them and all the other groups because of how imposing they can be about their Four Scout ways. In some cases, they are safety standards that are well-meaning, but that no kid would want to follow in a place as unsupervised as the creek. In others, they are clearly meant to put a damper on people's fun, just so that Jason and his friends can feel important and in control, even though it never works out in their favor. As well-meaning as they can be, Jason does act like he is entitled to certain privileges because of it. While Jason is shown as the leader socially, it is implied in the episode Alternate Creekiverse that Tony may be the real leader of the group, or at the very least, the real source of evil coming from within the group, as he steers the Four Scouts in a dark direction in this alternate universe where Craig joined the Four Scouts instead of Jason. This was just a fantasy of Craig and the Stump Kids, however, so it should be taken with a grain of salt, but it does say a lot about how Craig sees the inner workings of the Junior Four Scouts, and why he would feel held back there by Tony as opposed to Jason in this fantasy. Before Jason lived in his home, one of the ancients of the creek lived there, known as the Game Master. They buried the stats and history of the games of the creek in their backyard, which Craig dug up to try and understand the cause of the Great Capture the Flag War. In this episode, Jason indicates that he will be in a lot of trouble for this, and while that would be the case for most any kid whose backyard is ruined, the most recent episode, Scout Guest, painted a much darker picture for why Jason got so intensely angry at Craig. It wasn't enough to stop him from making up with Craig at the end of the episode, but the state of anger he was in over Craig digging up his backyard felt much deeper than just that, or even just being left out by Craig earlier in the episode. In the episode Scout Guest, Jason very awkwardly comes to Craig and explains that he lost his keys and needs a place to stay the night. This has happened before apparently, but he would always stay the night with one of the Four Scouts, Tony or Boris. Craig begrudgingly accepts his invitation and begins to revel in it when he sees that Jason, wanting to be the perfect Four Scout, is also the perfect house guest, cleaning to earn his keep and doing Craig's chores in the process. Craig's mother is of course concerned about this impromptu sleepover. It is a school night, Craig does not like Jason, and while she is not offended that someone would ask this as a favor, she understands that the way it unfolded is suspect. Jason gave Craig's mother a phone number, but doesn't really say if it's his dad, mom, or some sort of guardian. Greg's mother plays the part of just wanting to check in to feel out the situation, and seems to come to the same conclusion that the audience is meant to, that Jason's parents are absent, neglectful, a bit unconcerned, but not to the point of needing to call an authority figure. Craig's mother tries to explain to Craig just how lucky he is compared to Jason, but as a child, he can't look past his own ego at this point. It isn't until Craig has to share something of his own with Jason that he can see just how lucky he is compared to him through a very poignant metaphor. Craig's bedroom is well known to have a bunk bed in it, despite not sharing a room with his brother or sister. It is perhaps possible that he and Bernard shared them at a younger age when they lived in a smaller home, or perhaps Bernard's room was some sort of home office for a while. Regardless of why he has it, Craig explains in this episode that he likes having both, as he can sleep on a different bed depending on whether he feels heavy from dinner or high from dessert, so to speak. While this may be true for Craig, the real reason he was explaining this was because he felt like Jason was invading his territory, and he likely offered up those beds to his other guests such as JP when they spend the night. Craig rationalized here that he needed 2 beds every night, highlighting how his home is overflowing with what he needs, whereas Jason, on that same night, has literally nothing, no beds to sleep in because neither of his parents care enough just to be there to let him into the home. After noticing this jarring difference in how their lives had led to this night, Craig is more open to hearing about Jason and his home life, and he realizes how little he understood about him before. While we don't know what happened to Jason's birth mother, his father has married a new woman, who Jason describes as preferring the chihuahua she raises as a hobby over him. Jason's father likely travels for work and his stepmom for her hobby, and the way he describes her, I imagine they both travel a lot without him, perhaps joining each other on business and hobby trips while leaving Jason at home. Jason is rationalized by his parents as not just being old enough to take care of himself, but in need of more opportunities to do so and become more independent because of his Forest Scout training. Jason doesn't talk to his father much, and his father gives him little praise, but Jason does hear his father praising him when he brags about his accomplishments as a Forest Scout to other adults. This makes Jason double down on the Forest Scout training, hoping that getting more badges will lead to his father praising him directly, or at the very least hearing the praise indirectly some more. The Forest Scout system likely acts as a bit of a babysitting service for Jason's parents, who can pawn him off to Tony or Boris's parents under the guise of carpooling to regular Forest Scouts events and meetings. The key conflict in Jason's life seems to be with his stepmother, who is doing her best to keep Jason's father away from him, as I doubt it's just late work nights that prevent him from being there to meet Jason early enough for him to go to bed. I imagine Jason's father was around a bit more before dating and marrying Jason's stepmom, but her childless lifestyle likely involves a lot more events on top of travel, and he now indulges in that with her. All in all, Jason would be told by his father and stepmother that anytime he acts out because of their absence is him being irresponsible and not the upstanding Forest Scout that they know him to be. It's a complex psyche to build up over certain titles and roles parents can give to their children as part of a reward system. Kelsey and her father have a similar dynamic where he indulges in her fantasy as a warrior as long as she is well behaved, but with Jason it becomes a sort of threat they will have to live up to that title, and that anything below that is not worth their love as a result, even if with those titles he's not getting the kind of love he is asking for. So anytime Jason tries to improve his home situation by expressing a desire to spend more time with his parents, he can be dismissed as whining by them in an instant. Craig comes to terms with all of this as Jason falls asleep, and the next day while waiting for the school bus, he confirms to Jason that he now sees him as a friend, which is a great step forward for these two boys, but understanding why Jason has some bad behavior does not actually change Jason's bad behavior, and I'm curious to see how this will pan out in future episodes. But what do you guys think? Did you like Jason before? Do you like him now? Do you think this is a positive development, or do you think that Jason still needs to address some of his issues, and perhaps that Craig does too before they can truly start thinking of themselves as friends? Let me know your opinions in the comments down below, and while you're down there, let me know which Craig of the Creek character you want me to break down next. We can do Helen, Deltron, Kelsey, or Wildernessa. See you guys next time.